Trauma, toxic stress, broken habit, and hurting heart don't define destiny, but peace isn't passive. It requires an exchange. To create a flip and access peace in the middle of the pieces, you are challenged to make an exchange of the lies that have kept you mentally hostage in basement moments. Resilience isn't about bouncing back, but bouncing forward. Living Strong, the flip side of adversity, brings powerful stories and fearless conversations from experts in the field of business, relationships, emotional, physical, and mental health, and faith-based communities. Each episode creates a brave space with powerful tools from authentic connections. Tune in as we dig in with Dr. Jackson on the flip side of adversity. Hello, and welcome to the flip side of adversity. I am Dr. Veirdre Jackson, the CEO and creative of Living Strong Consulting, and we are finishing up September with a conversation around legacy. If you follow me on social media, then you know I have been posting about the opportunity when you are able to leverage and a moment. I met this young lady at a conference held by Harriet Harris and in Texas, and she introduced us in a context of talking about how you are not your trauma. She held her first summit, and we were a part of the platform. But those moments when you are entering into a space and you have the opportunity to not only serve, but to be poured into, and having the opportunity to say, you know what, Lord, what do you want to do with this moment as the fruit from this experience? Well, let me tell you, this conversation is the fruit from that moment. And I know Harriet, hopefully she is stealing a moment away from the Women of Wellness conference, and she's listening in. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your servanthood. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for always creating space for collaboration, because this is the fruit when you can have like-minded leaders coming together to pour out, as well as continuing to pour into each other. Yes, she is here. Hello, Harriet. This is a conversation around legacy. If you have ever been ashamed of your story, hiding your story, or trying to downplay your story, this is the conversation for you. And if you know someone who is doing that, this is the moment to ask them to share it, or ask them to tune in. Let me tell you about our guest. We have Jo Copeland. She is dedicated as an educator and an administrator and a children's ministry leader, and her entire personality just radiates joy. She, as I shared, is an accomplished school administrator, and she is an author with the impactful book, Broken Legacies: How to Stop Cycles of Family Dysfunction. I know there are some in there who just leaned in. You said, oh, this is the story. This is the conversation. This is the flip side moment for me. She is a beacon of light, of growth, change, inspiration, and possibility. So let me welcome to the flip side of adversity, Jo Copeland. Welcome, welcome. And the crowd cheers and the hands and applause. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Thank you
Hello,
so
my
much for
sister.
having me. Hello, Dr. V. Thank you for having me on your show.
It is an absolute pleasure. I have been looking forward to this moment because I know you to show up as authentic, to show up as a woman of God, and to show up in a space of wanting to deposit truth into the souls of others. So that's everything that is flip side of adversity. So I'm so excited, and I
Yeah.
actually want to jump right into the meat
Okay.
because you have entitled your book with the first two words of broken legacy. I'm curious why that title and why this book?
So, listen, when God downloads something, you just have to be obedient. And broken legacies, I can't even really tell you how it came, but I do know that my first thing that I had to acknowledge was that I was broken.
Mm,
The second thing that I know that I want is legacy. But there is something in the middle that's causing this to not connect. And that broken legacies means that something is wrong. The enemy is in there in some type of way. And I have to figure out how to disconnect him. So the broken legacies is what came in my mind because that's what I see. That's what I live. That's what I see in so many families. And it's no more. I feel like God wants to heal the land and I'm just his mouthpiece at this time. So that's kind of how it came, and I was willing to be the poster child for it,
mm,
despite the fear, despite knowing what not knowing what to say and how to
mm,
express it. I just wanted to be obedient, and
mm.
if my obedience can set someone free, then I feel like I will have a well done, and that's all. I'm just trying to pass the test, Dr. V. I'm just trying to pass the test. So
I,
that's how it came. Mhm.
I know that's right. That's literally you pulled out my heartstrings, and I truly just want to hear well done. And if it's uncomfortable for me, if it's going to stretch me, so be it, because I want
Mhm.
to hear well done. And
Amen.
I think a piece of why I was so drawn to the title you chose as well is literally what you said. I feel like sometimes we go through something in our past that shame locks us into a hiding place. And because we're then compromising what God wants to do, even with that thing, we sabotage the opportunity to really focus on the legacy that He'll take all of it. And you use a quote in the book, and it says, This comeback is personal. It's an apology to myself."
It's an apology to myself.
Wow. Wow.
It
I
is.
need I need you to unpack that for us.
It's personal because sometimes when you are trying to love people, you overcompensate in different areas to fill in their brokenness, not knowing that God is the only person that can do that. And so sometimes we put ourselves out there, sometimes we love hard, we get our feelings hurt, we love hard, we get our hearts broken, we love hard, and it's not given back the same way. But then the scales come off. You say, I can only be who God has called me to be. I did it, and I don't make an apology for loving, but I make an apology for feeling guilty for the times I did not measure up to someone else's standard. And so for myself, this is an apology to myself to say you are good enough, you are loved and you give love and you're God's love. So
Mm,
with that alone, you this is your moment. Like God loves you for you. So I'm sorry for putting that standard on me. I'm sorry for the times that I tried to overcompensate to make you feel comfortable. I'm sorry for the times I had to dim my light and allow you to shine because of the jealousy and the envy. I'm sorry for the times that, you looked at me and it made me feel bad about who I was because of the rejection. So, no, not this season. This is an apology to myself. I get to walk in who God has called me to be, and the devil just has to move out the way because I can't continue to allow people, circumstances, my past, or the hurt to disqualify me
Mm.
from being everything that God wants me to be and will allow me to be. So, yeah, this comeback is personal.
This is such a powerful moment in how you're being honest around forgiving yourself, like apologizing to yourself and then forgiving yourself to be able to move forward, because there's an assignment you have to fulfill. And I think about the woman who is still feeling stuck because she feels like she has wasted so much time. And so regret, not only guilt from what she may have missed in those moments, but she's actually being held hostage by herself because she's so focused on, I've wasted so much time. Would you,
Mhm.
can you answer or speak to her in is it too late?
It's never too late. I think the part that, see, the enemy, when you know how the enemy work, he doesn't have any new tricks. And one of the tricks of the enemy is making sure he holds your mind in a place or holds your heart in a place where you can't be released. And God is just saying, like, it doesn't matter the time nor the hour. Like, when I call you, you are enough. And I had to tell myself, and we can jump more into it because the way that I grew up, people would look at me like, oh, you're from this place, oh, you're from that place. And it will make me feel embarrassed until I said, it doesn't matter. That's what my parents did. That's not who I am. That was a choice of my mom and dad. That's not my choice. And so I have the moment, the time to say, God, where did you call me to be?
Mhm.
And it does,
Mhm.
that revelation doesn't, it doesn't matter what age you are, as long as you get it. Now we don't want to die and go to the grave and never get where God wants us to go. So I encourage you to start over.
Mhm.
Use your story as the platform. Use your story as a way to help other people not make the same mistakes. That's how you use it against the enemy. You don't allow him to keep beating you up. You use that same beating and you fight him back with it. And so we have to. That's why it's important to have sisterhood and to stand and to be there for each other, because we have to remind each other, like, what you went through, thank you, you just saved me, because I was just about to go through the same valley. But now I
Mhm.
know how to fight in the valley if God chooses to put me there. But even if he doesn't, now I have the wisdom to know this is I can go a whole nother way. We don't
Mm.
all have to make the mistakes. You can learn from other people sometimes.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. And that learning, that intentional decision, that pivot, that shift literally breaks the cycle of dysfunction. And you talk about patterns of dysfunction. Can you unpack what role understanding reoccurring cycles of dysfunction, what role does it play in your journey as well as the book?
so when I first started writing the book, it took me a while because it was something that I had to live through, that I had to understand. And I can't tell you that I have fully understood the whole revelation of it, but I have come to an understanding where I can say, that happened that way for a reason. And now let me move past it and help somebody else not make the same mistake. So when I started the book, it started on how we look at the people that we're trying to date.
Mm.
Because as an educator and as a ministry leader, I have seen brokenness in all forms. And I have compared the brokenness that I've seen to my own. Even though I have been in church, I wasn't raised in the church by my parents. God called me by name. And so, even from that, I can see his hand on me. So, I start with fatal attraction. Who
Mm.
are we choosing? Because I believe that the number one thing that Satan uses to break us down is sex,
Mm.
identity,
Mhm. Mhm.
relationship. If I can push you to choose the wrong person, I can break everything about you. And so when
Wow.
we take the scales off our eyes and we say, I'm not choosing for a good time, I'm choosing because this is my destiny and this is my legacy. And I need God in the midst of it. then our mind, you allow yourself to choose God's best rather than just somebody that for a temporary situation. And so that's kind of how I start the book, with how the legacy is first broken. And it's broken with how we choose.
Mm.
Because I heard Darius Daniels, I was listening to him this morning, and he said, you're born looking like your parents, but you will die looking like your decisions.
Yes.
Right. And so now granted, I'm not beating anybody over the head over decisions, because we're all still learning, and this good book help us, but we like, Lord, can you please walk it through for me? Okay. Can you walk me by the hand? But it's some stuff that we cause on ourselves. And until we acknowledge that, we won't be set free.
Hmm.
I can't
Hmm.
blame anybody else for my brokenness, but I can say, Joe Copeland, stand up. You're weak in the knees. Like,
Yes.
let's get it together, right? Let's get it together.
It can be
And,
a
and, and
it can be a really
get weak in the
scary
knees sometimes,
thing.
okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a
Mm-hmm.
really scary thing to ask God, please show me because I want more of you and everything that you want for me. And but that really requires you to allow yourself to be open and vulnerable enough to say, Lord, show me. I want I want to understand where I'm making poor decisions, where I have unhealthy relationships, where toxicity continues to cycle in my life. And you share very personal and very vulnerable parts of your story in the book. What was that process like for you to share so much of your story? And just as you said, you lived it. So,
Mm-hmm.
what was that journey of getting it out of yourself and onto paper? What was that like?
It was, the first motive was, I'm to be quite honest,
Hmm.
because of the call that God has had on my life. Now, let me take you back. My
Hmm.
mom and dad never went to church. My mom and dad weren't even married, but my dad was always present. Okay. I'm the youngest of six. My mom passed away when I was 13 years old. During the time that she was alive, mind you, she never went to church. It was people that knocked on the door and asked us in our neighborhood if we wanted to go to church. I just always had the desire to do it. With that, it comes persecution, because now you're not doing things the same way everybody else in your environment is doing things. And you are being isolated, persecuted because of wanting to do the right thing. You think you all that. You will never amount to anything. Just because you got this don't mean it. And all you're trying to do is do the right thing. So after being hurt so many times from the people that I love, I was trying to figure out, why do people hurt people so much?
Mm.
And I came to one conclusion: it's brokenness.
Hmm.
They're broken in different areas of their life, and they're projecting it on me. And at times, I have projected it on other people. So I want to make sure that when I wrote this book, it wasn't a slander book. It was got a revelation of who I was and what I have gone through. And my heart was to say, God, let me help heal your people. Because if our people are healed, then I can quit being attacked. If our
Yeah.
people are healed, then I don't have church hurt. Like, I just want us to heal so we can be the best version of ourselves. But we can't do that until we acknowledge where we were or where we are. And I had to go all the way back to childhood. When did it start for me?
Hmm.
How did it start? What has happened in my own family that has caused me to feel like I have to protect myself, or I feel like I'm the black sheep?
Mm.
I had to figure out that, but also be strong enough in who God has called me to be, to not be afraid to share it
Hmm.
despite the consequences. Because when you've gone through enough, what else can you do? Like my niece said one time, you can't fall off the floor. All things you can do is get up. So, what's there to lose at this point? Right?
Yeah.
You get persecuted when you are a Christian, you get persecuted when you're not one. You get persecuted if you're successful, and you get persecuted if you're not. So somewhere in the middle, we got to find a common ground to say, hey, okay, let me figure this thing out. Because what I don't want to do is project my brokenness to my children. And that's where the legacy comes. I don't want them to go through what I've gone through. I want to be, and now I can't stop the hand of God of doing what he needs to do. But what I can do is be a supporting person for my kids. So if they have those questions, I have enough wisdom to direct them in the right way. Because I didn't have that. I didn't have these conversations. I had to figure it out. So that's kind of, I can't even remember what the
Yeah.
question was, but that's kind
No,
of where I
no.
was.
So you took us back to the context of
Mhm,
recognizing that this really required you to step back and say, you know what? I need to understand this pattern of brokenness. Like it's coming, I'm getting beat up. And even that first shift of this actually isn't about me. This is like that hurtful interaction isn't about me. This is the
mhm,
pain that that person has not processed, has not healed from,
mhm,
and now they're deflecting it onto me. And I now have to choose, am I going to receive it, hold on
mhm.
to it, allow it to go into me? Or am I going to recognize, hold it back out so that God can have access to it and I stay clearly on my path of healing? So the second part of the question was, as you just unpacked how you were intentional, this wasn't about a slander. This is about a healing story for others. What was it like actually writing it? What were the ups and the downs in getting it out of you onto paper?
So the ups and the downs, it took a little while because, like I said, I'm healing through it. The hardest part was chapter 2, the damage. Like I told you before, my mom has passed away. My dad has now passed away. Um, I had to, and it's not a long chapter, but I have to talk about how it started. With my mother, no one wants to talk about your mother's choices, but your choices
Mhm.
caused some pain for me. I am the youngest of six, and my oldest sister has her own father. The three in the middle, four in the middle have their same father, and I have my own. So that's three different men. Um, that comes isolation. That comes with all kind of things in a household that's divided already, because we all carry the same last name that she did, and I think she wanted to make us unified, but that's not my last name. That's not who I am. She was married to my oldest sister's father, and so when I had to unpack it, I'm like, as a single mother, she had three different encounters, but my dad was the only one that stayed. My dad was the one who took care of his responsibility. And so as I'm writing this story and I am reliving the different things that have been spoken to me or have been, just the way that I was treated and I overlooked, because love allows you to overlook some stuff. But when you come to the point where you say, I can't take no more, it allows you to see the reality for what it really was. And one of the things that came back to my memory was growing up. We lived in the housing projects in West Dallas, and thank God my mom had her father, which he was pretty well off, but he would come all the time in his truck, and we would be so excited to see him. And his Papa's here. He has passed now too, and I know he didn't do this out of spite, but it hurt. And what I mean by this is, I said, Papa, can I go with you? He said, No, you can't go. I'm taking your brother because you already have a dad. And
Mm.
I realized that I was getting punished for something that I was supposed to have. So I can't even have a relationship with you because of something someone else did. And therefore, at that time, you have, oh, okay, yeah, I understand. But is it really fair?
Mm,
It's not fair that he doesn't have a father, but it's not my responsibility doesn't that he doesn't have one either. That's too much weight on a young child to have to download and say, well, I can't have a relationship because I see my father every day. But at
mhm,
the same time, I have enough sense and compassion for my siblings to say, I understand.
mm,
But as you if you unfold it, you see the division in a household that shouldn't be there. Now I'm not saying that, people don't make mistakes. What I am saying is we just have to be careful about the decisions that we make. Because even if we don't recognize it, we're still walking in dysfunction. And that's
mhm,
dysfunction.
mhm.
And so to this day, I don't have that close relationship because I'm sure it's so much. And I always go back. Joseph was the one that gave me strength.
Mm.
Why
Yeah.
did he get the coat? No one else got it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
not fair. You know, he was favored and then punished. They weren't favored. Then it goes like this for half of your family. When you come from this, how do you build
Yeah.
legacy when it's
Yeah.
not like this, and when
Right.
it's not like this?
Right.
We
Right.
like this
Right.
all over the place, and we wonder why we're hurting each other because we don't know
There's
nothing
so
else.
there's so many families um and relationships that are so complex and twisted. So, what are some things that you have learned and that you've written about that actually breaks those cycles? What are some things to begin to do? If you could give people who are listening three really concrete things to begin to do to break out of the cycle of dysfunction so that they can really sit and stand in a place of healing, um, and being able to begin to commit to legacy.
So I would say one thing you do is the first thing you have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge where you are. And it's not to go back and say, you did all of these things to me. That's not the point because you've done some stuff too, even if it was not something you realize you've done. You have to repent. You have to say, God, show me who I am so I can change. The second thing I had to do was forgive myself for the times I fell short, for the times that I didn't understand. And then because I was able to self reflect and do the work, I didn't have a grudge against those who've hurt me. I had compassion because now I realize that what you're doing comes from brokenness. It's not who you really want to be. Who was God? Who did God make you to become before you got hurt? Like who is that person? And that's how I had to start looking at people. Now, I'm not saying be around those people if they continue to have the venom, but you can have a sense of compassion for them and then you can pray for their deliverance. And the last thing I will say, one of my friends, she read my book and she inboxed me and she said, Joe, I read your book and I realized that I drug my kids through my marriage. What do I do?
Mm,
I said, the first thing you do is you acknowledge to them that you drugged them through a marriage. The second thing you do is tell them how you felt and you did the best that you could with what you had. Now, ask for their forgiveness. Now, this is a teachable lesson. Now you teach them what not to do.
mhm,
So a lot of times we just stay quiet and hope that our kids get it or we hope that the other person understands. No, sometimes I need you to say I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm waiting on the apology. And even if I don't ever get it, which I'm not waiting on it from anyone, but it sure feel good every once in a while for somebody to say, hey, I acknowledge your pain. Because what people fail to realize is forgiveness is not really hard. It's just the acknowledgement of the
mm,
pain that you've caused me that you keep denying that makes it hard. Once you acknowledge that you've done something to me, my heart is softened. But when I'm telling you that you've done something, you keep on saying I didn't do it. That's what's making me angry. So
mhm,
we have to acknowledge that. So I would say if you are reading this book, then you really say, God, show me me. and show me how to get out the pit.
Yeah.
Because if you want a strong legacy, it starts with you.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
can't change anybody else, but what we
Right.
can do is change the stuff that we've done. And even if it's complicated, and I say entanglement, it's still those baby steps that we can take to say, this is not the life that I want to live. Just
Yeah.
like when I wanted to get out of the hood, as they would say, this is not how I see myself. So, what do I need to do to get out?
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
takes years sometimes, but it takes a first step as well. So, that's what I would recommend as those nuggets. Like your shirt says, you have to know you're valued. I'm not broken.
Mm.
Because when he died on that cross for me, he raised me up. He raised me up from every pit that I've been in and all of the things that I've gone through. And he said, just like everybody else, when he stretched those arms out, he gave me the same chance everybody else had. Doesn't matter where we came from. I'm at the
Mm.
same start line, and hopefully we'll all make it to the finish line. But no, I get the same. I get the same opportunities, and so that's kind of what I would tell. I do have a toolbox at the back of the book with some nuggets that people can kind of take with them to just, we just got to be spiritually mature and get those muscles in our mind to tell the enemy to leave and
Yeah.
and and be okay with walking away.
And there's an opportunity in all of this to be honest and see one another as human beings, as children of the Father, to recognize that I've made mistakes, you've made mistakes. I'm going to be on a journey to forgive you, whether or not you are able to be fully honest. I have to be free.
Right.
But when I make a mistake, the same way I want to be free from somebody else's wrongdoing, I have to get free from the shame, the guilt, the dishonest steps, the broken steps. I have to get free from that by being honest myself and asking for forgiveness, because we're all forgiven in this. And so if
Mhm.
we're keeping tallies, then it literally also holds us hostage and keeps us in a cycle of that mixed up confusion. As I look at
Mhm.
Alexandra's, she just posted, she said, literally, you are telling her story, and she's 100% agreeing with you. It This is an opportunity for us in healthier relationships to hold one another accountable, beginning to
Yeah.
do the work that requires us to be humble, to lower our arrogance, to release our pain, sometimes to release people, and
Yeah.
recognize, so this is what I now need to do. Be honest about it. And what role does accountability play in all of this work?
So actually, it's a chapter in the book called Accountability. And the reason why I wrote that book, now, mind you, when I start the book, it talks about how we choose. And a lot of us are unequally yoked with partners and different things like that, or just at the will of God. And so we have to recognize that sometimes the choices that we make are not God's best for us. And we can't get mad at something that He never chose for us. But what He can do is reroute you, just like a navigation system, and tell you, hey, it might take a little longer. But if you stay on this path that I'm giving you, then you will be able to get where you need to go. And so the accountability in this is, like I said, first saying, I've done the same thing to other people that people have done to me. It may not look as big at times, but some stuff we have done, and the same thing we have done to our Father. So when we understand that, not only have I sinned against other people, but some stuff I've held in, some stuff I've done sneaky, some stuff I've done that wasn't in the will of God, it offended God just as much. So the accountability comes when I say, God, I'm not perfect, and these right now I know that this is visible sin. Help me to see the sin in my face so I can, so you can heal the sin that I can't see.
Mhm.
And so even in the book, I talk about how two people get together and, you no longer want a child, but guess what? You did the act to get a child. So how does that work? That's the accountability. If you don't want it, then don't do it.
Mhm.
So those different things that we just have to, the hard conversations to say, okay, it's a lot come with this decision. So let me stay away from it until I'm able to hold it, until I'm
Mhm.
able to be responsible for it. And so just that accountability to ourselves. I think the hardest thing is we don't want to look like the bad person. So we'll put that on anybody else instead of taking account that sometimes it's me. Sometimes I'm the problem. And so that to me, that's what accountability looks like. It looks like confessing your sins. It looks like acknowledgement. And sometimes it looks like going to apologize to people, even if they're not sorry, but you are acknowledging that at some point you have hurt them as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what accountability looks like.
Yeah. When you talk about us making choices that are unhealthy, those examples of hurt that sometimes leave us in a place of either lack of forgiveness but brokenness, or we've started adopting lies. And I think about our young people who we're as adults we're making decisions that's directly impacting their future and their perception of who they are, the value that they have, and even when we're believers, the God that we say we serve. And so when I think about even the example that you gave, oftentimes we are making poor decisions later in life because we've boxed in this concept of love and we've
Hmm.
distorted it. We didn't receive it in a healthy way. It wasn't modeled for us in a healthy way. Even in the example that you gave, like that love is limited to particular people, or that love isn't big enough to be shared across multiple people. It literally creates an imprint on us that somehow I have to control, manipulate, or go after this thing of feeling seen, of feeling loved, of feeling like I belong. Because as human beings, we have distorted it somewhere, passed it to children, and now they act it out or grow up to make poor decisions. And then we want to point and say, oh, you shouldn't have done that.
Hmm.
When in so many ways, we as human beings desire, He has made us to feel seen and connected. And when it's not healthy, we are still going to go after those two things, to feel seen and to feel connected. And we'll go after it in a crooked way. And so
Hmm.
that whole allow me to understand all of this stuff that's twisted in me, not to shame me, but to clean me out. Um,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
so I don't pass that to someone else.
Right.
I I know you're an educator, and so I feel like you probably have seen lots of stories or scenarios where a young person is literally just acting out of what they were given.
Hmm. And it's not, and it's sad to see because what I had to tell myself, even from the environment that I lived in, that wasn't my choice. That's what I was given. But if it was up to me, I would choose something different. And it's a lot of us that we have to cope not with our mistakes, but the mistakes of other people. And that's what I would tell young people, even my own children. Your mistake is not just going to cost you, it's going to cost me something too. And when you think about it in that way, then you'll do stuff. Okay, if I do this, will it just affect me? Or will it affect my husband, my children, my household, my dog? Everybody, like you got to take into account the different things that we do. And a lot of times it's selfish. We only think about us.
Mm,
We only think about my feel good moment. what I want to do. It's all about me. And that's kind of what the world teaches us to do. Look out for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so a lot of times we don't take into account other people's feelings. We don't take into account that if I make this decision as a leader, that all of these people lose their job. Like, I have to take into account not only myself but everybody else. And that's what I'm talking about with the brokenness and then trying to create legacy. We are doing cycles of dysfunction
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we see all the time. I'll never forget. I was like 24. I was 24 when I got married, and somebody close to me got extremely mad that I wanted to get married at 24 because they said I had not been out there enough. And so
Mm.
my comeback was, "What do you want me to be?" And we know that word.
Right. Right.
Why would you want me to be that when I'm trying to do it God's way?
Mm-hmm.
So because that's what the norm is, people expect you to do that, or you're looked at as somebody that's, I've been called weird.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you have to make up in your mind what kind of life you want to live and what kind of life you want your children to live. I'm not perfect as a parent, but I try very hard to acknowledge, to apologize when needed, to make sure that I am, giving wisdom and, not getting angry just because I've had a bad day. Like, nobody deserves that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody deserves for you to vomit on them. Like, go heal,
Mm.
please.
She said,
Please
"Go
go heal.
heal. Please go heal."
Go heal. Because you're getting it. And you'll realize that it's not the people of the world that people vomit on, it's their family, the
Mm.
people that love them. I'm not going to go yell at my boss, but I'll yell at my kids. I'll yell at my husband because we have an expectation that they will stay through it. And I say something, I didn't even know if people caught this in the book, but I said, they say blood is thicker than water, but I say blood stains and water
Mm.
rinses out. Because a lot of things that we do in families, we expect people to take it, to live through it, to still have relationships despite all of the hell that they've been through. How do I even view you the same way when you just cursed me out, when you belittled me? No, my friends speak to me better than that. No, blood hurts, blood stains, and sometimes I can't get it out. And so that's I had to disconnect with some people because what I can't allow you to do is mess up my peace because of relationship. Like, no, I have to be able to function. If you have mental illness or whatever it is, and some people have that, and I'm not, saying that that's wrong or anything. I just know that if you are dealing with stuff like that, then deal with it. But don't make it something that I have to deal with too.
Mm-hmm.
Get the help that you
Get the
need.
help. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get the help. And
Yeah.
that's what we draw the line. My help is lashing out. No, no more. Nope.
She said, "Nope."
Nope.
You actually gave us another nugget and an accountability moment in saying, so who do you want to be? When the world is telling you you need to do this, culture is telling you you need to do this. There might be family members or dysfunction that has been feeding you a story. And in those moments, really standing clear, who do you want to be, and how will who you are being, how will that stance reflect the God that you serve? Who do you
Mhm.
want to be? And deciding, who am I going to be in this moment? Even though it may be uncomfortable, it may be difficult, I might stand out, I'm not going to fit in, but who am I going to be, and how is this going to be a reflection of who God has called me to be? And it requires a level of bravery that we
Mhm.
don't always feel like we have, but it sends such a ripple effect through rooms, through people, and through relationships, and even sometimes through a bloodline. When you
Mm-hmm.
become that person that literally shifts the dysfunction and you create a new narrative, which I feel like you have. So there's so much in your story of honesty and vulnerability that reflects how hard elements were, but you have created a legacy. You're creating legacy. You have created pivots and shifts. So what who are you today? Like how have you taken
Okay.
this and created? You've created from it. Tell us about today.
So today, I want to leave with one little nugget too,
Mhm.
from the last part. The pleasures of sin won't last, but the consequences will. Okay, and those consequences are what keeps us broken. But who I am today. So today, I feel healed,
Mhm.
mentally and spiritually stronger. The journey of healing takes a while though, so it still triggers at times, but what I have learned to do is to use the word of God to cover it, to cover the triggers, so that I can still walk in his, in his image. I love who I am as a person who gives back to children, who pours out my heart to children. For the last 4 years, I have been a ministry leader in over 300 kids each Sunday. And let me tell you, teaching those kids how to worship, it heals something in me. They don't know the days that we sung "No weapon formed against us shall prosper." And I'm teaching them at a young age that when people come up against you, you don't allow the enemy to take over your mind and your heart. I'm teaching them how to forgive at a young age. I'm teaching them how to have boundaries at a young age. Um, so for that, I feel like the last 4 or 5 years, I feel like God has called me to a place where I can help him, I can assist him in healing the land. And it has come with a major responsibility, but I realize how much his hand has been on me to get me a. I went through the valley, but I came out without the smoke, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. And
Mhm.
so I have realized the things that he kept me from. If you knew the environment that I came from, and I did not smoke and I did not drink and I did not indulge in sex and all of the things that people were in my neighborhood doing. And God just held my hand. Mind you, I never went to church with my parents. So he sent people to help and guide me. That's when you know that you're called by name. So now, even though I'm in this process, um, I call it the field, that would be kind of like a little part of my next book. Um, I still know what God has done for me. And so, if anything that I can do, I tell God, what's my part? Because the least that I can do is speak of your name. The least that I can do is make sure your people know you. The least that I can do is pray for somebody that needs help. Let me walk them through something I've gone through so they don't have to experience the same hurt. They can choose better. So I feel good about the person that God has called me to be because I'm not who people say I was. I'm better.
Mm.
God gave me the same opportunity as everybody else, and it didn't matter where they came from. That's how I know that He loves me because He has pulled me out of a situation that people said I should have died in. My eighth grade teacher was killed for trying to buy drugs, and my ninth grade teacher committed suicide. I don't supposed to be here.
Mm.
So I know that it's a testament that I'm still standing. So for that, I said, God, well done. Look, I'm giving you kudos because I you, you wrote the story, but you're not finished with my story. And that's one of the things that I learned last year at the Woman Evolve conference. He said, I'm not finished with you yet. Because it can come times in your life and situations can get harder and harder. And I'll be like, Lord, like how many storms? I thought the storms change or the seasons change. And I'm like, I'm still going through it. Like, did I even pass the test? So I got a C plus? What did I get? Did I get something? And so, but I realize now, even after today's session, that he's building that spiritual muscle. He's building that faith journey muscle. So when I stand before people, I have a testimony to say, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not green. I understand. Our story may not be the same, but I can guarantee you it can almost be the same formula because the devil has no new tricks. Okay.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where I am. I'm excited to see what he's going to do, but excited that he can use me um to help him.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like Moses at times. Sometimes I feel like Joseph. Sometimes I feel like Job. I feel like a lot of people, but I'm thankful for where I've come and how far I've come, and for
Mhm.
that I give him thanks. And so,
Yeah.
as you know, motivational speaker, author, and I have children's books, and he's allowed me to be administrator. Like, who would ever thought? Like, for real.
Yeah.
And I realized my mother and my dad are with me all the time because I wouldn't be able to have a story had it not been for her passing away. I feel like she was the gap that God used to deliver me. So,
Yeah.
I'm just not trying to take anything for granted, but
Mhm.
to really give him my whole self and allow him to use me the way that he needs to.
Yeah. 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 That willingness to, because sometimes people afraid to be as vulnerable and honest as you have been, and therefore literally sabotage the very work that he wants to bring forward and even have them realize. I love watching you smile and reflect on his hand all through different situations, all through different situations. And I want you, as we close out, for you to kind of share, no, not kind of, I want you to share with us what you hope people take away from the book. And I'll start with what something that I am watching you, I'm challenged, is to look for his hand, even when it doesn't look like what I want it to. His hand is still there. So
Mhm.
that for me resonated with me, and I'm taking that away. Can you, as we close out, share what you want people to take away from this book?
So as you read the book, even if you don't ever get a chance to read the book, what I need you to know today that you're still valued. I don't care how many mistakes you've made. I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you've been abused or whatever it has happened in your life. You're loved, you're valued, you're not broken because God's blood has already healed you. So walk in who he's called you to be because we are valued. And I have to tell myself I'm valuable. God cares about me. I'm a masterpiece. And when you're a masterpiece, you're not just on the floor, you're behind the case, baby. They have to get the key. They have to get the key to get you because everybody can't touch you. Only those who can afford you can have you. And so God has already paid that price for you. So don't feel like everything you've done in life, like God doesn't want you. Like the church is a hospital for the sick, and we all have been sick. So go and get your healing. And I pray that through my book, through what you've heard today, that you can experience your healing, that God can give you divine revelation for your situation so that you can walk into everything that He has called you to be. So that's my hope and that's my prayer.
Yes. And how can Alexandra's already ordered the book? She put it up. She said, I got the book. for for others who are a little bit slower to the draw, can you tell us? Yes, that's the cover. Beautiful. And so
Thank
can you
you.
tell us how to get the book? And you have written children's books as well. So how can we
Yeah.
actually access everything?
So for the book, I realized if you go on Google and you put Broken Legacy, it will give you two options: Amazon and my personal website. You can definitely get it from Amazon, but if you want it from my personal website, I can write you a personal message. Okay, whoop, whoop, whoop. So you can get it both ways. Brokenlegacies.com, or just put Broken Legacies and Google. It should pop up. Sometimes on Amazon, it act a little funny, it's being funny with me. But you can get it from there. And then we have children's books as a family. Right now, we're about to start taking pre-orders, but it is 4 books that we're about to come out with. We have backpacks and everything, so everything is like pre-orders right now. But that's the Adventures of Superkai.com, and so that again is creating legacy because I want kids to read and to see themselves. So those characters are my kids. My husband is the illustrator, and I am the author, and so we're doing this as a family because we're tired of being broken and broke. Okay, no, I was just playing, but yeah, you can get everything off the websites. And I appreciate you guys. You can also follow me on Instagram under author_Joe, Copeland, Copeland.
Wonderful. Oh, Joe, this has just been such a powerful conversation, a healing conversation, an accountability conversation, and a legacy builder. So, thank you so much for your transparency and your honesty. Truly appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate meeting you, and that's what I pray for, divine connections. And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
thank you for
The
having me. Thank you
the
guys for listening as well.
Absolutely. So, everybody, that wraps us up with season 12 of and our September episodes. We are excited about October. I don't want you to miss October because literally I have a lineup of women who are going to talk about standing up, speaking out, knowing your power, and walking in it in order to win. I can't wait for you to hear each one of them as they come into the studio and we have a flip side conversation. Every single week in October is going to be a brand new episode that airs live. So don't miss any of them. And as always, we look forward to seeing you and you logging in. Same place, same time, right here on the flip side. I'll see you then.